Salem witchcraft was a part of New England religious history and an important part, but it's the one thing we always go to, right, when we think of Puritanism.
The witchcraft, I mean, that's not particularly characteristic of Puritanism. There's a lot more witchcraft persecution in Europe, in both Protestant and Catholic traditions. But in that one episode in Salem in the late 1600s, they get carried away, and even within 10 or 15 years, the main participants in that are repenting of what they did, and they recognize that things had gone wrong.
Witchcraft was punishable by death throughout the Western world. It was punished by death in England, in continental Europe, and in the colonies that became the United States of America. Far and away fewer people were tried as witches in the colonies that became the United States of America, or were put to death as witches in the United States of America than England, France, pretty much any other European country. They were still putting people to death as witches well after the Salem witch trials in England. I think someone was put to death as a witch in Scotland in like 1780. So this really should not surprise us. C.S. Lewis has a great line about that. He says it seems absurd to us that you would put someone to death as a witch. But if you really believed, if a community really believed that some people were in league with Satan to cause harm and even death to other people, if you really believed that, you would want to punish witches, right? And so this is really a worldwide phenomenon. It's not an American phenomenon.
They believed in the reality of witchcraft because they believed in the reality of the spiritual realm. And in fact, they prioritized the spiritual realm over the material. They saw the material realm as infused with spiritual powers.
The Salem witch trials did come pretty late. Those were the last trials in which anyone was put to death as a witch in America. It was actually led by a non-Puritan governor, and all sorts of horrendous procedural processes were used. So the Puritans over time, and the Reformed folks who followed them, had come up with all sorts of procedures that made it very, very unlikely that people would be put to death as witches. What you have in the Puritan witch trials is you had this non-Puritan governor who came in, threw out all these procedures, and did things like putting people under a lot of stones to see if they would die, and so forth. Yeah, so it's horrendous, and I'm not making any excuse for that. But we think we know about the Puritans because we read Nathaniel Hawthorne, and he's just not. This is not an accurate tale, even of the Puritan Salem witch trials, and it's certainly not of what was going on in America.
This is sort of the beginning of the end of Puritanism, because Puritans were supposed to have all the answers and know the spiritual side of things, and what happens if they get it wrong, and people are dying and put to death based on incorrect notions of witchcraft and other things.
That notion, that kind of hysterical notion that there were hundreds and thousands of witches in that society who were seeking to overthrow what they viewed as their godly society, their Bible commonwealth. And so these notions of conspiracy, pertained then as they do, as other notions of conspiracy are rampant now. Imagine what would have happened if they had social media back then. It would have been havoc.
The textbooks talk about the Puritans at the Salem witch trials, and they're very religious. And then you go to the American Revolution, it's like no one is religious all of a sudden. There's no religious questions in the air. And when you read the stuff, you read the documents, you find out these are very religious people.